starting with the first page being numbered 1 and then continuing sequentially until the end of that bundle. DCJ, we are on bundle G. We've removed the affidavit of Mr. Bouters from that bundle and we'll put it in a separate bundle.
Okay, all right.
And then
Okay. And you will deal with that at some stage to place on record
yes.
what we will call that bundle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Or do you want to deal with that now?
Yeah. So as you've suggested, DCJ, the numbering will be the same. It'll just be a different bundle number.
Yes. No, what I mean is we will need, for purpose of the record,
yes.
to say what bundle it is and what exhibit it is,
yes.
so that somebody who reads the transcript will not look for
yes.
the number that was mentioned earlier and would not look for it in this bundle.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Try and do it by tomorrow so that it's all
Okay.
at the same time.
Okay. No, that's all right. Okay. So,
Chairperson, our next witness is Mr. Nicholas Johannes Loubser.
yes.
May he be sworn.
Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Nicholas Johannes Loubser.
Do you have any objection taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Yes, you may then continue, Mr. Soni.
As you please, Chairperson.
You,
Chairperson, may I take
well, you just want to mention where I find Mr. Loubser's affidavit.
page 106 in bundle G, Chairperson.
Okay, we're using bundle G, which is and the exhibit for his affidavit is SS16.
SS16.
Yeah, and it's page 106.
106.
Well, the covering note starts at 104, and then there's an index at 105, and then the actual affidavit starts at 106.
Yes.
Okay, for purposes of this bundle, you see, we normally, when we refer to page numbers, we normally refer to the red numbers on the pages.
Yes.
So let's announce, for the purposes of those who will read the transcript, that how this one is. Is it the handwritten numbers pagination that we follow from the beginning to end, or is there a mix of the red numbers and the handwritten numbers?
It's the handwritten numbers
Throughout.
throughout.
Okay. In this particular bundle, the pagination, for the purpose of the record, well, it can't be, Mr. Soni, because I see Mr. Mukhashwa's affidavit doesn't have handwritten pagination.
Chairperson, what we intend doing is we will handwrite that as well, so there's consistency. People are not looking in different places. So just those numbers will be the same, but they will be handwritten as well.
Yes, I can't say that we'll follow the handwritten numbers until everything is handwritten. So I won't say anything about the pagination because it means it's not consistent. Okay, but for purposes, so for present purposes, there's pagination that is read and pagination that is handwritten, is that right?
That
But
is
the red pagination will, you will paginate by hand, but the numbers, page numbers will be the same.
will be the same for Mr. Makashva's affidavit.
Yeah. I just wish somebody had just done the whole thing from beginning to end, and we could announce before we start using it that this is the arrangement, because all the other bundles, the pagination is, we tell the witnesses, look at the red numbers. That's the pagination. So here we've just got to say handwritten. But now if I say handwritten, then that's not correct for the other one. So we'll say handwritten or maybe we won't say anything, but we'll just say, we'll know that for his affidavit and documents is the handwritten ones. And then later on, somebody will then do the earlier ones.
Makashva affidavit.
Okay, all right. You may proceed.
Chairperson, may I just give an introduction to the evidence of Mr. Loubser, because one needs to indicate what the nature of his evidence is going to be. Mr. Chairperson, you would have known that in respect of the property deals that Ms. Ngoyi dealt with in her affidavit, and we canvassed quite extensively even yesterday, a person whose name features quite prominently is a Mr. van der Walt. And you would know that the allegation is that he was at some stage or the other an attorney for Siangena. And the context is, it was Siangena which had that major contract or contracts with PRASA amounting to 4 odd billion rand. Now, Mr. van der Walt is no longer in the country. He was an attorney in the firm Loubser van der Walt Incorporated. He left in 2019, and we understand presently he is in Austin, in Texas, in the United States. We have received the cooperation of his former partner, Mr. Loubser, who then kindly made certain documents available to us and is here to explain what he knows about some of these transactions. But he will explain why his knowledge in this matter is somewhat limited.
Well, I don't know whether for purposes of enabling those who are listening and those who are maybe viewing the proceedings on television or elsewhere, it's not necessary, whether it's not necessary to mention the property transaction to say, this is what appears to have done, and this is how the law firm appears to have been involved, or Mr. van der Walt to have been involved, and then so that when they hear Mr. Loubser's evidence, they can see where it fits in.
As you please, Chairperson. Now, Chairperson, you will recall that in regard to Mr. van der Walt and why Ms. Ngoyi in her founding affidavit and replying affidavit in the Siangena matter says the Siangena contract with PRASA is tainted is, she says there were 4 property transactions involving Mr. Montana and Mr. van der Walt, or his company, which is called Precise Trade and Invest 02 Proprietary Limited. The first, Mr. Chairperson, is a property that Mr. Montana owned and which his own banker had valued at about 3.5 million rand in 2012. In 2014, Mr. van der Walt bought that property from Mr. Montana for 6.8 million rand. Effectively, he made a profit, Chairperson, of more than 3 million rand on the estimated value of the property.
You mean Mr. Montana made
Mr.
a
Montana made
profit
that
of,
profit,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The second property that is in question, Chairperson, is a property in Waterkloof in Pretoria, and we're hoping to have a witness, the owner of the property, to come and give evidence this afternoon, who will indicate that the property was, the first person to express an interest in the property was Mr. Montana, and then gradually he withdrew from the scene, and Mr. van der Walt, through Precise Trade, became the owner of the property. And that property was in the region of 11 million rand, Mr. Chairman. The third property is a property in Sandhurst, and the estate agent who sold the property is here. He will be giving evidence on that property. He sold that property for 13.9 million rand, having entered into a contract originally with Mr. Montana, but then again Precise Trade entered into the scene, and they became, the property was transferred into its name. The fourth property, Chairperson, is a property in Hurlingham, which Mr. Montana bought, and that was in the region of 13.5 million rand, and that property they attempted to transfer into the name of Precise Trade, but the owner would have nothing to do with it, and you will see from documents as to why that was the case.
That's the owner of the property, and not the owner of Precise Trade.
Yes. Yeah. And eventually the property was transferred to Mr. Montana. Now, the evidence that is available in respect of the payment of the properties, Chairperson, is that it does not appear as if Mr. Montana paid any money for any of these properties. Now, we accept that he sold one, and two were transferred into the name of Precise Trade. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Chairperson, he bought a property in his own name, just transferred to his own name, for 13 odd million rand. But the documents that we have which show payment for these properties doesn't reflect that he himself paid even a cent for these properties. So that is the value of Mr. Loubser's evidence, because although he can't give first-hand information, they confronted Mr. van der Walt about this, he and his partner, Mr. van Wyk.
And Mr. van der Walt was not just a partner in the law firm, namely Loubser van der Walt, but he was the sole director, is it, of Precise Trade?
That is so,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And what we will also show through Mr. Loubser is that when they confronted him, Mr. van der Walt gave Mr. Loubser and Mr. van Wyk a set of documents which contain some of these property dealings, but more importantly, the funders for these property dealings. And there are three main individuals who are the funders. We will go through them, but perhaps I should just mention them now. There is a Mr. Clancy, there is a Mr. Pimentel, and there is an organization which you've heard of already, TMM, which had entered into a contract, TNM and Mr. Ferreira had entered into a contract with Mr. van der Walt to have joint ventures in property matters. And in respect of some of the payments were made into Precise Trade's account, and soon thereafter, withdrawals were made to pay for some of these property transactions. But that will be shown via a bank statement that Mr. van der Walt gave to Mr. Loescher. So those are the matters I'm going to lead Mr. Loescher on, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. You may proceed.
Yes, sir, please. Mr. Loescher, sorry, you've heard the introduction.
Yes.
Okay. Can I just ask you, are you still practicing as an attorney?
Yes.
And how many partners are in your firm at the moment?
Presently is the 2.
That's you and Mr.?
I'm sorry, Mr. Loescher.
Oh,
Although
please,
he's asking the questions, you tell me the
Sorry.
answer. So
Sorry.
you look at towards me most
Sorry,
of the
Chairperson.
time, and then you can just raise your voice.
Sorry, Chairperson. There's currently only 2 directors in the firm, myself and Mr. van Wyk.
Don't know whether it's the aircon. Please just repeat that. Whether the aircon made your voice not to be clear. Just repeat what you have just said.
Sorry, Chairperson. Presently, it's only myself and Mr. Robert van Wyk. It's directors of the firm.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Loescher, your firm is still called Loescher van der Walt.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Following Mr. van der Walt's resignation, the sale of his shares, we changed the name to Loescher van Wyk, as it's called
Okay.
presently.
All right. Now, how long had you and Mr. van der Walt and Mr. van Wyk been in partnership?
Mr. van der Walt and I started a firm in 2000, and about 3 years later, Mr. van Wyk joined us first as an article clerk, a professional assistant, and later became a director.
Look at me, Mr. Loescher.
Yeah, just repeat that there.
Yeah, please repeat that.
Myself and
Maybe what you can do as you speak, come a little closer to the mic or bring it a little closer here. Okay,
we started a firm in 2000, myself
that's much
and
better, yeah.
Mr. van der Walt started a firm. We were the only 2 directors. About 3-4 years later, Mr. van Wyk joined us, first as a candidate attorney, then as a professional assistant, and later on became a director in the firm.
And after, when Mr. van der Walt left,
Where?
when did he leave?
He left in July 2019.
Now, before he left, though, there were concerns that you and Mr. van Wyk entertained about certain dealings that Mr. van der Walt appeared to be having and that had received adverse publicity. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Would you tell the chairperson the circumstances of that?
Myself and Mr. van Wyk became aware of newspaper reports that mentioned Mr. van der Walt and his company, Precise Trade and Invest. There were certain allegations made against Precise Trade and Invest. Never really involved the firm, the law firm. And then I think it was in September, October 2015, there appeared certain newspaper articles which once again makes reference to the company Precise Trade and Invest, and then mentions his law firm, Mr. van der Walt, Precise Trade and Invest, and his law firm. At that stage, Mr. van der Walt all times maintained that Precise Trade and Invest is his company. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. But we were concerned that the law firm, even though the name was not mentioned specifically, but Mr. Van der Walt and his law firm, by association, our name is being tarnished and we were placed in a difficult situation. At that stage, we decided to call a meeting. There was speculation, allegations in the newspapers and stuff, which we don't have personal knowledge of. And we decided to have a meeting and explain to us exactly who is Precise Trade and Invest and what properties they bought, he bought. This is the first meeting we had, and we addressed the letter to him in writing following that meeting, which he responded to.
Now, just to put it on record, you've described all these matters in an affidavit which you made on the 18th of June, is that correct?
That's correct.
18th of June, 2020.
2022. And in this affidavit, you attach a number of documents which Mr.
Maybe for the sake of, I don't know if we already mentioned, but that affidavit appears at from page 106 to 113. That is the affidavit of Mr. Lopsha in bundle
G.
G.
As you please, Chairperson.
Yeah.
Now, you confirm the correctness of what's stated in your affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. So you say you confronted Mr. van der Walt.
Yes.
And following that confrontation, what happened?
He explained certain things to us, and we agreed that we will pose those questions in writing to him to explain, which we then drafted the letter which we addressed to him by myself and Mr. Van Wyk, and asked him to confirm in writing what he told us in a meeting or provide more clarification.
Sorry, so
Sorry, Mr. Soni. Let's start with this. First, you became aware of certain allegations in the media, in the newspaper,
Yes.
Relating to Mr. van der Walt or Precise Trade or both, but also those allegations or those articles or that article mentioned your law firm in whatever they were saying. Is that right?
That's correct. Didn't mention the firm by name, but
it said
Mr.
van der
Van der
Walt
Walt's
and
law
his
firm,
law
which-
firm. Yeah.
Yes.
What was your impression of what was being said about Mr. van der Walt or Precise Trade that made you concerned and want to confront him?
They appear to be, he always maintained that Precise Trade and Invest, he's the sole director, sole shareholder and director of the firm, and he bought properties, and we heard that he's previously also involved in other property transactions, but there was some allegation about his law firm, and we wanted to know, is there any truth in certain allegations made? Explain to us who is Precise Trade and Invest, and which properties did you acquire through that entity?
Were there allegations of some wrongdoing made in the media about Mr. van der Walt and or Precise Trade, which you were concerned people could associate with your law firm, because the reference to his law firm was a reference to your law firm as well?
Yes, there was mention made of money paid by his law firm to somebody.
But did it give the reader, did the article give the reader the impression of some wrongdoing, allegations of wrongdoing or not? Why were you concerned about what was said in in the media about him and the law firm?
Because by association, we didn't know anything specifically, but because the law firm was mentioned and there was mention made of monies paid by his law firm, we were concerned about was there money involved through the firm.
Okay, what I'm trying to understand is whether you were prompted to confront him simply because from what you read in the newspapers, it appeared that there may have been money that, according to the article, was either paid to the law firm or was paid by the law firm to buy some properties without your knowledge, irrespective of whether there was wrongdoing or not, or whether the impression you got on reading the article or articles was that whatever Mr. van der Walt or Precise Trade was involved in or was allegedly involved in was may have a negative impact on the law firm. It created the impression that the law firm might be involved in wrongdoing. Precisely what made you say, look, we must confront him about this? Is it simply because there might have been some money transactions involving the law firm that you knew nothing about, even if there was nothing wrong about them? Or was there, did there appear to be allegations of wrongdoing of one kind or another?
Chairperson, we were more concerned about monies that was paid through the law firm, because the rest was allegations in the newspaper. We didn't deal with that aspect. We were more concerned about monies that was somehow through our law firm. And it was not a meeting, it was not a confrontational meeting. It was explained to us this, who's Precise Trade and Invest, did the transactions flow through our firm. That was our concern, not the allegations that he did some wrongdoing. We were more concerned about the firm.
But were the allegations or was the impression you got from the article that some monies had allegedly been paid from the law firm to buy some properties that you knew nothing about, or was the allegation or was the impression that some monies were paid into the law firm without your knowledge in regard to some properties? Which exactly?
Yes, we were, there was mention made of money that was paid by or from our law firm, which we were not aware of. Myself and Mr. Van Wyk were not aware of.
Okay.
Just to give some context to this, you wrote to Mr. van der Walt on the 14th of October, right? And that appears at page 120, that's annexure NLJ2 to your affidavit. Sorry, NJL2 to your affidavit. Would that be correct? If you look at the bottom,
I see it as page 119.
Yeah, it starts on 119.
Yes, yes. And your signature and Mr. Van Wyk's signature is at page 120, is that right?
That's correct.
Yes. And that's dated the 14th of October.
That's correct.
Can I ask you just to turn back to an annexure before that, which is NJL2?
Yes.
On what page?
Sorry, page 117. Is this the nature of the article? Because I see you say in your affidavit you couldn't find the article in question, but you give there is a summary of the article which you annexed to your affidavit. Is this the nature of the article that was written?
Yes, we couldn't find the original article. It appeared, I think it was both in a report and City Press. We couldn't find the article anywhere on the internet, but we managed to find, Mr. Uleman asked me if I can refer to the article, and this seems to be a synopsis of what was said in the newspapers.
And the date of this News 24 article is the 4th of October 2018.
That's correct.
Is that right? So that's two things. The articles or the media reports start early in October, and you confront him about 2 weeks later. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you, this
I'm
is what
sorry.
the chairperson was asking about, the nature of the article. And would you just, we don't need to read the whole article, but would you just read the headline of the article as it appears on page 117?
It says, lawyer forks out 25 million for Montana's mansions.
And if you could just read the first paragraph of that article.
Before that, Mr. Soni, have you indicated from what publication this article comes?
It's Chairperson, sorry, I should. Yeah, Mr. Lopsher, you'll see under that headline, the N is blotted out, but it seems to be a News 24 article. Is that correct? If you just look at the headline and under that on the left-hand side, do you see that? Mr.
Mr.
Lopsher?
Lopsha?
So, yes, under the headline, lawyer forks out 25 million for Montana's mansion, it says News
News
24.
24, yeah.
Right. Could you please just read the
And
first...
I'm sorry, I see on the right-hand side there the name Peter Louis Myberg, and then I see report. Do we know whether the article was written by Peter Louis Myberg, or we don't know?
It would be written by him, and it would be a News 24
Yeah.
report based on what was contained in the report.
Okay.
So if you could read the first paragraph of that article, please.
A lawyer with close ties to a company that won large tenders from Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, when Lucky Montana was at its helm, bought Montana two upscale properties worth almost 25 billion rand and paid for it in cash.
Now, is the name of the lawyer mentioned if you look at the second page of that article?
Yes, it's mentioned on the second page.
And
Well, maybe he could read a few more
It
sentences
mentions
there.
there.
yes,
The lawyer, Rian van der Walt from Pretoria, strongly denies that his shelf company acted as a proxy for Montana.
and then just so that your concern is noted, what does the next paragraph read?
Van der Walt's law firm has in the past represented a company featured in a public protector's Madonsela's recent report on PRASA following an irregular tender worth billions of rands.
And then the article gives a synopsis of some of the matters that they had uncovered, the newspaper.
I think, Mr. Soni, it's fine. He can just read and finish that
As
article.
you please.
Just read and finish it, Mr. Lopsha.
Yeah, then when it gets to a paragraph which starts, it says, Van der Walt's law firm paid a deposit of 5 million rand towards the Sandhurst transaction and confirmed in a letter that the house's new owner was Montana. The purchase agreements for both properties were ultimately altered to reflect Precise Trade Invest O2 as the legal owner, whilst Montana himself took possession of the property keys. Montana said he wished not to comment. Van der Walt maintained that the shelf company was in no way related to Montana or any other third party.
Mr. Loadshed, there
sorry.
is a paragraph that you didn't read. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought the paragraph that starts Van der Waal's Shelf Company.
You're right. So, my apologies. Van der Walt Shelf Company, Precise Trade and Invest 02, paid 13.9 million for a house in Sandhurst, Johannesburg, and 11 million rand for a house in Waterkloof, Pretoria, in November 2014 and February this year, respectively. Both properties were paid for in cash. However, early 2013, Montana himself signed a contract of sale to buy the house in Waterkloof. In October 2014, he signed an offer to purchase the house in Sandhurst.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then the last paragraph, the second last paragraph about Van der Walt's relationship with Mr. Montana, what does he say about it according to the report?
Van der Walt maintained his shelf company was in no way related to Montana or any other third parties.
And then it says the full report appears in Report and City Press.
Yes, and a full report in City Press. It's a bit, some of the pages been cut off.
Now, you confront, well, perhaps I should, you raise the issue with Mr. Montana, is that correct, after this article or after the report article?
No, we did not raise the issue about Mr. Montana. We
Sorry, with Mr. Van der
Van der
Walt.
Walt.
Yes.
We raised the issue with Mr. Van der Walt regarding this shelf company, Precise Trade and Invest.
Look this side again, Mr. Lobsha.
We raised the question of the company Precise Trade and Invest. We wanted to know more details of that.
So you had a meeting with Mr. Van der
This is an
Walt.
inquiry. Who's this Precise Trade and Invest? Because it was not known to us.
Now, that meeting that you had with Mr. Van der Walt, yourself, Mr. Van der Walt, and Mr. Van Wyk, it's very important that I get as much of what was discussed there as possible. It may be that it was a short meeting because it was agreed that you must put your request in writing, but I want to hear the full discussion. But if there is not much other than that, you put the question and you said put your questions in writing. Just talk more to me about that discussion.
I can honestly not recall the exact nature, but it was brief, and it was agreed that we will address our concerns in writing and give him opportunity to respond.
Okay.
So just taking up that theme, is it because you wanted there to be in something in writing so there's no dispute about what the real facts are? Or did he ask for more time? Or did you say, give us time to prepare a proper inquiry to you?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Okay, so let me put, oh, sorry.
Okay, all right. Who asked that there be a written request for information? Did you and Mr. Van Wyk say to Mr. Van der Walt, we will give you something in writing to tell you what we would like you to deal with? Or did he, that is Mr. Van der Walt, say to you, please send me something in writing, then I will respond in writing?
Once again, I cannot recall, but I'm pretty sure that I cannot recall who raised whether it should be in writing or not. I cannot recall, but I assume...
Well, if you can't remember, it's fine, but in the end, it was agreed that you would put your request in writing, for request for information.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and he would respond in writing.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Loadshed, why I ask that is you are three partners, and it would be unusual where you have a partnership of lawyers for one partner to say put it in writing or another partner set to say, I will put it in writing. It looks like there were concerns about what the real facts are, or am I wrong? Am I just speculating?
No, there was not concerns about the real fact. We just wanted to. We were at that stage. We were 3 directors, and there was 2 other attorneys involved in the firm, and we all run our own departments, and each of us have a couple of hundred of files that we deal with. And I don't really know what Mr. Van der Wyk deals with, or one of my PAs deals with, or what Mr. Van der Walt deals with. So it was not a thing of accusations. We wanted to, who is Precise Trade and Invest, exactly how. It was more an inquiry than saying there's something untowards.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, that meeting is held on the 12th, and then on the 14th you send...
Is that 12th October
12th October
2015?
2015, Chairperson.
Yeah.
And one finds that in the first line of NJL 3, Chairperson.
What page?
Page 119.
Right. First line.
Yes. Na aanleiding van vergadering gehou op 12 October.
There's an English translation, isn't it?
There isn't an official, Mr. Ollerman made
I
it
thought
on.
some of these documents that were in Afrikaans, there was some English translation provided. Is it
Mr.
not all of them?
Ollerman provided an informal translation for us.
Yeah, well, who provided it?
Clint Ollerman.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's accepted as correct, so then that's fine. I don't know if Mr. Losha has seen it, that translation.
No, he hasn't.
Is it not here?
No.
It's not. Oh, it's not here.
part of the record, no.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, my Afrikaans is much worse than it was when I was at school. It was much better when I was at school. That's centuries ago. So it would help if we could have maybe an official translation, unless Mr. Losha is happy later on to just provide an English translation. I think he's fluent in English. Mr. Losha, is that something that would be easy to do, or you would rather we should have an official translation?
No, that's fine.
You can provide, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Of all 4 letters, Mr.
Yes, obviously,
Yeah.
I just want insight into to confirm whether it's a correct reflection of the...
Yes, what of course you can do today is when a reference is made to a letter that is in Afrikaans, you can tell us what you were saying in English.
Right.
Yeah, because it's your letter, you know it, yeah.
So, just on that theme, Mr. Losha, would you tell us more or less summarize the contents of NJL3?
In the first paragraph, we referred to the meeting.
I'm sorry.
That's still page 119.
You are talking about NJL3.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the letter of the 14th of October, Chairperson.
But I don't have anything written NJL3 at page 119.
I think,
Is it the red writing?
no, it's the black writing above the red writing.
Yeah, well, that looks like an N06 NOL
Yes.
3 to me. Why don't you just use the pagination
As it
numbers?
is, yes.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think today is not.
It's not been the best of days.
It's not the best of days.
I'm sorry. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I think just repeat the question to him.
Yes. If you could please summarize, Mr. Loubser, what this...
Your letter starting at page 119.
In the first paragraph, we refer to the meeting and just introduction, it's a formal request. Second paragraph, we specifically asked him to confirm which immovable properties are currently registered in the company Precise Trade and Invest. And then ask him if there's any properties registered in a name, provide us with exact details of the property, copies of the purchase agreements, and how and when the purchase price was paid for the properties so acquired. We continue to ask him whether if there was money paid by Precise Trade and Invest, was that money, did it flow through our trust account? And if the money was through our trust account, specify who paid money into the trust account and to whom those monies was paid. Also ask him to confirm who the current shareholders were in Precise Trade and Invest. And then on page 120, there was a general question about a statement from, I think it was from the reporter,
Mr. Myberg.
I don't know, should I repeat that the statement which was made by the reporter? The reporter, maybe just, the reporter basically stated that Mr. Van der Walt visited Mr. Mario Ferreira, the offices of GMM Holdings, frequently through 2014, sometimes twice a week. These meetings occurred at about 6:30. Also learned that documents were frequently taken from DMM Holdings to Loubser Van der Walt Incorporated, where Loubser Van der Walt receptionists took possession of such envelopes. We'll ask him about this allegation by the reporter. That's the final question we posed to him.
Now, that letter was written on the 14th.
That's correct.
Did he respond to that
He
letter?
responded to that.
Yes.
And on page 121,
Yes.
I'm sorry, before that, the unofficial translations that Mr. Oleman had prepared, are they available
I can
within
make
the
it.
legal team? Because if they are available, I would like them to be unofficially sent to, handed up to me, so I can
Yes, but you can
I
follow.
can have a look at them as he
Yes.
deals with the letters that are in Afrikaans. Because I did have hard copies earlier on that were given to me.
I just want to see if my hard copies are here, Chairperson.
Because if I had known they were not here, I would have conditioned myself to reading Afrikaans and try and resuscitate my knowledge of Afrikaans.
Chairperson, can I do this? I have a copy of Mr. Van der Walt's responses in English. So I have translations of his responses. Can I hand those up?
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
I'm sorry, I left the other
Yes.
two.
Okay, no, that's fine.
chambers.
Okay, but in the meantime, we can continue.
So Mr. Van der Walt, Ms. Loubser, responded on the 20th of October, is that correct?
That's correct.
And his response appears from page 121.
That's
Is that correct? Now, again, very briefly, could you just for the record indicate what his response was?
He firstly indicated, he listed in paragraph 1, paragraphs 1.1 to 1.5 of the letter, he listed the properties that was currently registered in the company Precise Trade and Invest. He then attached copies of the purchase agreements, which we requested him to do so, and he attached a bank account, a bank statement, reflecting the monies received. It's a bank account statement from Precise Trade and Invest, indicating which monies was paid into that account and also paid. That's at paragraph 3. At paragraph 4, he say that that money paid into Precise Trade and Invest account was paid by 3 entities, or one entity, namely TMM, and then 2 other persons, Americo Pimentel and Mark Clancy. Then to that, he attached certain agreements between himself personally and TMM, himself personally, Mr. Pimentel, himself personally, and Mark Clancy. He attached those agreements to that to explain why the money was paid into Precise Trade and Invest's account. Then in the second paragraph, he confirmed that he's the sole director and shareholder in Precise Trade and Invest. The following paragraph, he confirmed that over a period of 8 years, at various occasions and at various times, sometimes as early as 6 o'clock in the morning and after hours, he consulted together with advocates with TMM, ESS, TMM Rental, and Siengena Technologies.
Yes.
Then, he continues, he mentions a number of names of persons that he consulted with.
Could you just read those names,
Okay,
please?
right, I will do so. He mentions then Ronald van Wardach, Carlos Sanchez, Rui Ferreira, Mario Ferreira, Sheila dos Santos, Tom Dubeck, Alvin Wilsnach, Manny Marx, Martino Marx, Anton Verster, Jacques Verster, Jacques van Jaarsveld, etc. On different occasions over a period of 8 years, consulted by Loubser van der Walt, due to the fact that Loubser van der Walt, through Tanya Creer and Dina Boshoff, were responsible for various conveyancing transactions for TMM Rental. We were conveyancers for TMM Rental. Further, various litigation matters were dealt with by Loubser van der Walt, and documentations was delivered to TMM Group or delivered to them, to the offices.
I see that in that letter or that correspondence, Mr. van der Walt's style or tone of writing seems to be very official. And he doesn't seem to be just writing as himself. Or maybe it's out of habit when you write a letter on behalf of your law firm to other people. I see that in paragraph 9, He says we, ons plaas op rekord dat hierdie skrywe en die aangehegte dokumentasie, blah, 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 blah. And in the next paragraph, Prof. Chen says, ons versoek. So this we makes me think he's being very official. Is that right? Or it might be out of habit of writing like that when he writes?
I think it would be because of the request was also to get it formalized. That my request is in writing and you responded in writing as per habit. Almost if you draft a legal document, which you do, and provided exact clarity.
It's not a reflection of any tension that these issues that you raised caused among the partners.
I don't know what he
What he might have said,
perceived my requests were meant to be.
Okay.
So, attached or annexed to that letter were a number of other documents.
That's correct.
Right. I'm more interested in some of them, and Chairperson, I do it purely in the interest of time. Not all of them concern the matters raised in the Siangena, and I just want to concentrate on those matters that are there. If there is something else, it'll come up at a later stage. But just in the interest of time, I thought I would just deal with those matters that are of concern to us.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I should also say that if I don't mention, for example, certain transactions involving these properties, it's because they will be dealt with when the transactions as a whole are being dealt with. The purpose of referring to these documents here is to indicate the importance of the documents to the matters that we are dealing with in the Commission.
I didn't hear an earlier sentence. You said you don't, I don't know, you said you don't mention the properties or something?
Yes. So for example, Chairperson, he deals, if you look at page 123, that's the first annexure. He deals with a property being sold by Mr. Isaac Roy Mogojane to Precise Trade. Now, that is not a matter that has been mentioned in the Siangena matter, or a matter appearing to involve Mr. Montana.
No. Yeah, obviously we are only interested
That's
in only certain matters, and
That's
those are the ones that involve Mr. Montana, as well as Siangena, or any company that might be related to, in one way or another, to Siangena.
Yes. So I'll just refer Mr. Loubser to those and bring it to your attention.
Okay.
Can I then ask you to look at page 138, which is an offer...
I'm sorry, Mr. Sonny. I wonder, because he referred earlier on to TMM and maybe whether from now on it shouldn't be made clear who TMM is, so that the viewer and listener can connect as the evidence proceeds.
Yes. Mr. Loubser, do you know who TMM is?
Yes, they were a client of ours, which I think it's a TMM group, and which I understood Mr. Mario Ferreira to have been the head of that TMM group, and existed in a different company. Mr. Ferreira had different entities, but we did work for, or the contact person for any work was always Mr. Mario Ferreira, and he had a relationship with Mr. Van der Walt. So any work that Mr. Ferreira had, either personally or through one of his entities, Mr. Van der Walt was the attorney that dealt with all those transactions. So I don't know all these entities. The only one I knew is TMM Rentals, because some of the properties that they sold, we were responsible for the transfer of those properties and also collect rentals, rear rentals, if they had tenants which did not pay.
Talking about transfer of properties, was at that time Loopse van der Walt Incorporated involved in any of the transfers of these properties?
Are these properties mentioned?
Yes, by Mr. van der Walt.
I'm not sure, but I believe so.
You don't believe so?
No, I believe so.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not personally involved with it, but
Oh.
from what later came to hand, it appears that we were, in some of them, we were the conveyancers.
You were the
nominated
conveyancers,
yes.
Would you be able to identify those? The properties?
I was thinking, Mr. Soni, whether seeing that Mr. van der Walt in his letter that Mr. Loopse read mentions certain names at page 122, and two of the people he mentioned there are Ferreiras. I wondered whether he could say whether the Ferreira that he is talking about is one of these or not, and whether also other names that are there have any, you would know whether they have any relevance to,
as you
to us.
please.
I see a Mr. Tom Dubek.
Dubek, yes.
Yeah. So before we move away from this
Right,
letter, I would
yes.
like that to be clarified.
So, at page 122, Mr. Loopse, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you remember we asked you to read the names of those people.
Yes.
Now, the one you've already mentioned, Mr. Ferreira.
Yes.
Now, he, you say, was associated with the TMM group, which is
Yes.
a group of companies which included TMM Rental.
Yes.
Now, what other companies, to your knowledge, was Mr. Ferreira associated with?
I don't know. There's TMM Rental, and I'm not exactly how the TMM group was structured. Who was all? I know. Yes, one I know is the company ESS. I know Engineering System Solutions. We did work for them as well. And I know Mr. Ferreira was also, I don't know if he was the head of that, but I know he had an involvement with a company called ESS, and I know the company ESS. I knew them.
And Siengena?
Siengena, I did not know at that stage. Personally, I didn't know who Siengena was or how they were involved with Mario Ferreira. I didn't know that.
At that stage, and now?
Subsequently, it appears that he was also involved somehow as a director or a shareholder of Siengena.
When did you discover that?
I cannot say for certain. Through the media and through time, can't put a specific date on that. It's difficult to know. I still don't know 100% sure whether Mr. Ferreira was involved in that company, Zingena, but through reports, it has came to my attention. But I know company dockets or documents or anything that can confirm that, but I assume through what I've heard and read that he was somehow involved in that company, Zingena.
And Mr. Tom Dubek?
Mr. Tom Dubek, I also knew him as I think he was the accountant for TMM. That's how I know. I've met him, Tom Dubek, and I was made to know that he was involved with TMM. I think he was the accountant, internal accountant.
Yes, we saw an affidavit yesterday, and I'm just checking this with you, which he deposed to, in which he described himself as the CFO of Zingena. Does that ring a bell?
I didn't know. I knew him as the could have been a CFO of TMM, but I didn't know that he was the CFO of Zingena. All I knew that he was a CFO or accountant for TMM.
TMM. The only two names that appear to ring a bell.
Yes. Okay, no, that's fine. Just to recap, what does Mr. Van der Walt say in that paragraph 7 about the people that he mentions there, including the two Ferreiras and Tom Dubek?
He said that he consulted with them over a period of 8 years due to the fact that Loupje van der Walt, through Tanya Kriya, she was a conveyancer at a permanent stage, and Dina Boshoff, she was also a conveyancer at a stage, responsible for various conveyancing matters on behalf of TMM Rental. And some of the transfer documents was delivered to their offices or from their offices to our offices. And he further mentions that various litigation matters were dealt with, and affidavits was delivered by various employees of the TMM group to Loupje van der Walt.
Thank you.
So, among the documents that Mr. van der Walt handed to you and Mr. van Wyk, together with his letter of the 18th of October, I'd like you to look at page 138, please.
Yes.
What is that document, if you could just describe it?
It's an offer to purchase entered into by Mr. Montana and Precise Trade Invest for the purchase of a property described as Earth 359, portion 0, Township Parkwood, for a purchase price of 6.8 million rand.
Yes, and the street address of that property, you'll see it at paragraph 1.2.
10 Newport Road, Parkwood, Johannesburg.
And that set out, sorry.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Sona. So this relates to this so-called Parkwood property, or the property in Parkwood.
That is the
Yeah, okay.
And this is the one, Chairperson, you'll recall that Mr. Montana sold to
Yes,
to
okay.
Precise Trade.
Okay. So it's the Parkwood property.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Mr. Chairperson, in an effort to save time, because we are going to deal with these matters when we deal with each of the properties, I'm just going to refer to the documents so that we can identify Mr. van der Walt as the source of the documents, what they mean, and their role in the picture we are trying to paint will be presented when those transactions are done.
Yes, but what needs to be done, and that's why I was checking that it relates to the Parkwood property.
Oh, sorry,
Is,
yes.
is that we mention, we associate
No,
the
of course.
document with the property
Yes.
concerned. This one is relevant to the Parkwood property.
Yes. No,
Another
no, no.
one will be relevant to another property.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And then can I ask you to look at the next document which appears at page 145? And what is that document?
It's a headed addendum to offer to purchase, entered into between Tepo Lucky Montana and Precise Trade and Invest. And on the second page, it continues.
So,
It is addendum to an offer to purchase.
so this is an addendum, we're reading the two documents together to the Parkwood.
I just want to refer back to the previous one, because in the addendum, it says addendum to an offer to purchase the 5th of May. And if I refer back to the previous document, it seems to be an amendment to the Parkwood sale.
Property, yes.
So the document appearing at pages 145 to page 147 relates to the Parkwood
The
property.
Parkwood property.
Yes, it's an addendum to the original.
Now, I'll ask you this because it is a matter that intrigues me. Mr. Montana sells the, and I'm not asking you to tell me what it means, but tell me what your view is about this. Mr. Montana sells the property to Mr. van der Walt for 6.8 million rand in May. In June, they signed this amendment, and the amendment at paragraph 2.1 requires Mr. Montana to effect certain improvements and installations into the property. Is that your reading of that?
That's what it says.
Yeah. Does that sound usual to you?
I cannot comment on that. I don't know why there was a subsequent addendum. I was not a party to the agreement, and I don't know why they did it in that way.
What is the date of the offer to purchase?
It was in May 2014.
Or then
The addendum
June, the
was-
addendum is June.
6 weeks later, Chairman.
Yeah, okay.
Almost 6
Yeah.
weeks later, yes.
The transfer had not taken place at the time of the addendum. Yeah, okay.
Then
Well,
the-
I'm reflecting on your impression that this is strange. I thought that was because the addendum was done after the transfer had taken place. But if it was before the addendum was had taken place, why would it be strange? I just want to make sure I can follow,
Yes.
even for later witnesses.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, I understand. Jefferson, A sells to B something for 5 million rand.
Yeah.
It's a profit or whatever it is. That is a binding contract. B must take the property and pay A 5 million rand. The effect of the amendment is to say, but before I take the property, I'm going to reduce the amount I'm going to give you because these are the improvements you are going to make. And A willingly agrees to that.
Well, I can imagine that you mean he agrees to that without saying, let us adjust the purchase price. You know, so I'm thinking that if the buyer could conceivably say to the seller, Well, I know we've agreed the price, but maybe I've just become aware that the condition of the kitchen is actually quite bad. I hadn't seen it properly. I know that I've already signed and you have no obligation, but you know what, I gave you a very good price.
Yes.
Can't you just agree to fix this? It
Yes.
will mean a reduction on the price, on what you will get on your profit.
Yes.
But I gave you much more than a
Than
normal
it is
profit.
worth, yes.
So that might be the explanation.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
But
but-
what the point I'm making, Chairperson, is it calls for an explanation.
No, that's fine. But I wanted to make sure whether
Yes.
I can follow it.
No, sure.
Yeah, because I had thought it was strange, but I think my thinking was that it happened after the transfer, which is not correct.
No, of
Yeah.
course. Yes.
Okay.
The next document is an offer to purchase made by Precise Trade to Mr. Kohler in respect of 119 Empire Place, Sandhurst. Is that correct? It appears at page 148.
Page 148, that purports to be, yes.
Chairperson,
I'm sorry, 148.
148.
Okay. Now, all the documents that you are going to refer to as you ask Mr. Lobsha questions, is it documents that were furnished to Mr. Lobsha and Mr. Van Wyk by Mr. Van der Walt?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And Chairperson, can I just again, for your own orientation, this is the Sandhurst property.
Yes, okay, that's important, yeah. This, the offer to purchase at page 148 relates to the Sandhurst
Sandhurst
property. Okay, thank you.
The next document is an offer to purchase made again by Precise Trade to Anmani Guest House. Is that correct, Mr. Lobsha?
What page is that?
Oh, sorry, sir. Page 154, Chairperson.
154.
Yes, it appears so.
To which property does this
This
one
is
look?
the Waterkloof property, Chairperson.
Property. Okay, that's the document offer to pay, purchase and sale agreement from page 154 up to
163. 163.
oh,
Yeah,
well, the
it
agreement goes
on.
up to 159, but maybe there is an annexure.
They all annexes to the same document, Chairperson.
Okay, up to 163.
163, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
As you please, Chairperson. Then, Mr. Lobsha, can I ask you to look at page 164?
Yes, I do have it in front of me.
Now, when you were explaining what Mr. van der Walt said, is he said that he had entered into contracts with certain people who provided funds for the properties. Is that right?
Yes, in his response, he said the Precise Trade and Invest was funded by certain investors. Yes. You mentioned GMM, Pimentel, and Clancy.
Yes.
Investors.
So this is one of the investors, Mr. Pimentel.
Pimentel, yes.
You'll see, Mr. Lobsha, I just want to correct something, that this is an agreement between Mr. Pimentel and Precise Trade.
That's correct.
And the reason it's important is I'll show you a difference in a moment with a different contract. And in terms of this contract, if you look at paragraph 2.1, Mr. Pimentel agrees to...
That is 2.1 at page 165.
165, Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Pimentel undertakes to invest a maximum of 20 million rand in this joint venture.
over a period of 12 months.
Over a period of 12 months. Sorry. Is that
I
correct?
see that, yes.
Right. Now, the next document, which appears at page 170, oh, sorry, can I just make one other point? You don't need to go to it. This document is dated the 3rd of November, is that correct?
Give the year as well.
Oh, sorry, 2014, Chairperson.
Okay, not,
If you look at page 169, you'll see the date there.
it's the 3rd of, can't-
3rd of November.
yeah, the handwriting is,
That's your partner.
so let's assume November 2014. Okay. Yes.
I just ask you, who is Callets
The secretary
at your firm?
at our firm, yes.
Is she still there?
Yes.
Just mention, when you ask Mr. Lopes about who Khalid is, you are referring to the person who signed as a
Who
witness.
signed as a witness? Yes.
On the agreement at page 169.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the next document is a contract between Mark Edward Clancy and Precise Trade. It starts at page 170. Would I be correct?
Yes.
And if you look at paragraph 2.1, Mr. Clancy undertakes to invest a maximum amount of 3,500,000 rand in the joint venture over a period of 12 months.
Yes.
Now, if you look at page 175, what is the date of this document?
3 November 2014.
Yes. And who signs as a witness?
Carl, it seems to be Carlitz. I think that is, she's actually a receptionist, Lillian Carlitz at our firm.
The signature appearing for or above the name Precise Trade, is that of Mr. van der Walt?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask you to look at the next document, which starts at page 180? And what is this document on the face of it, Mr. Loopsche?
It appears to be a memorandum of agreement entered into between TMM Holdings, Mr. Mario Ferreira, and Mr. Jan Arjan van der Walt.
Yes.
It's a memorandum of agreement.
Just before that, TMM Holdings, who represents TMM Holdings in respect of this
Yes,
contract?
from here, it's represented by MJ Ferreira.
And that's Maria Ferreira.
Yes, Mario Ferreira.
Right. And this agreement, unlike the agreement that Mr. Clancy and Mr. Pimentel signed, is with Mr. van der Walt in his personal capacity. Is that correct?
Yes, it's an agreement between three parties, TMM, Ferreira, and van der Walt personally.
Yes. And Ferreira and TMM Holdings are together referred to as TMM. If you look,
It provides so in paragraph 1.1 of the agreement.
yes. And under their names at page 180.
Yes.
Right. And you will see there that unlike Mr. Clancy and Mr. Pimentel, the right that is given to or where they have to pay, what this agreement does is it allows Mr. Mr. van der Walt to present any deals that come his way to TMM who have a right of first refusal to that deal. Is that correct?
That's what appears from the agreement, yes.
And then if you look at paragraph 5, you see that it's not only local. Will you read paragraph 5 into the record, Mr. Loubser?
The parties agree that this agreement will be applicable for all local and international investments.
And if you look at page 185, when was this agreement signed?
It was signed by GMM on the 14th of March, by Mr. Ferreira, also on the 14th of March. The handwriting is not clear, but 14th of March 2012, it appears.
And Mr. van der Walt,
Yeah, all of them, it appears.
do you recognize the signature of the witness?
Yes,
Who is that?
that's also a secretary at our firm.
Oh,
Previous secretary at our firm. Connie Steiger.
What's the name?
Connie, I think it's Connie Ferreira Steiger,
Oh, okay.
unrelated to Mr. Ferreira.
unrelated. She's no longer with the firm.
Yes. And if you look at the next document, Mr. Loubser, it's at page 186. And could you describe that document? Page 186.
It appears to be addendum to a previous agreement. Doesn't specify which
Just
previous...
raise your voice a bit.
It
again.
appears to be an addendum to a previous agreement. It doesn't really specify which agreement, but it seems to be an addendum to a previous agreement.
All right. And what this agreement says, if I could just ask you to summarize page 187, paragraphs 1 and 2.
Well-
Sorry, 1, 2, and 3. Sorry.
It appears to be an agreement on its own, doesn't it? Doesn't seem to amend any other agreement, does it? On its terms.
You're quite right, Chairperson.
Seems to be a standalone agreement.
Yes.
Okay. You accept that, Mr. Loubser? Or you are not sure? That it doesn't seem to be an addendum to,
Even though it's,
it says addendum
it's
at page
titled addendum,
186.
but- it's titled addendum, but it doesn't refer to a previous agreement, so
Yes, I'm saying, although it says addendum
yes.
at page 186, when one goes to the terms of the agreement at page 187, one would have expected that if it is an addendum to another agreement, that would be the first thing to be said, to say this is an addendum to an agreement signed between
Yes.
who and who when,
Yes.
or to say it's an amendment of a specific agreement. But when one reads paragraph 1, it seems to be just a standalone agreement.
It appears so.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, because there's no reference to that
Yes,
agreement at all.
yes.
Chairperson. Now, this deals with 3 separate issues. The Venice Village development. Do you know anything about that?
I know there was of a development which Mr. van der Walt was involved in his personal capacity with Mr. Ferreira. I don't know if he was a shareholder or how he was involved, but I knew about a development at Hartbeespoort there. I knew they were somehow involved. How, and he was also director of this Venice Village, or I don't know. But I knew, I've heard in the passing mentioned that Venice Village.
And his reward would be set out at paragraph 1.1. What is that?
The parties specifically agree that Van der Walt will be entitled to receive 5% referral commission on each and every unit sold of this development to third parties.
The,
The second part, it's a heading Ponton loan.
yes,
The parties agree that on date of repayment and fulfillment of the loan agreement with Ponton, Van der Walt will receive a referral commission of 17%. And the third one relates to, it's a heading Wetlands Country Retreat. The parties agree that Van der Walt facilitated the purchase of the shares through Triple Trade and Invest, and Van der Walt will be entitled to receive a referral commission. Then it says out sale of game. He's entitled to 30% of the net profit. He's also entitled to 10%. This is after the business plan has been approved. The parties will agree to either convert the referral commission to be received by Van der Walt into 10% shares in Triple Trade and Invest.
and then it records certain payments that we received.
This is
Have you any idea what that is about?
it records payments that's already been received by Van der Walt in terms of the, I assume, the agreement, which lists dates and amounts, which totals 4,050,000 rand, 402.69 cents.
Now, do you know whether Mr. van der Walt accounted to the firm for these amounts that he received?
No, he did not.
He did not.
No.
Now, when you get these documents, I take it, I'm not going to say you were outraged, but you were concerned that Mr. van der Walt is receiving this money, but it's not going into the business, or did that not concern you?
He, as Mr. van der Walt, has always been an investor in different companies.
I'm sorry, has
He
always been.
He was always it's not strange because he entered into agreements with various parties, friends, maybe to develop properties. So when he showed me this, he explained that this is work which he done early in the mornings, after hours, over weekends, something agreement he entered on his own with of those.
So, was this work that he
done in his own-
was allowed to earn income on if he did it outside of normal working hours?
Yes.
He was allowed to do that.
He was not specific, he never specifically disclosed it to me, but I didn't take issue with the fact that he earned money because I knew he was working late at nights
Yes.
with other people involved. And
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, as far as you know, there was nothing in the partnership arrangement between or among the three of you which prevented him from earning income through
No.
doing this kind of work if he did it outside normal working hours.
no, there was no.
Okay.
But when you became aware of it, what was your reaction? But this is not a small sum of money, it's 4 million rand. And Mr. Van Wyk,
We did not really take issue with this because we know he was working after hours and there was relationships. So it's a large amount, but we didn't take issue with that because it was something he had a business on the side.
Well,
Not-
you earlier on said, and you'd say so in your affidavit as well, that although you were three partners, is that right?
That's
Van Wyk and Mr. Van der Walt and yourself, you each had your own practices within the partnership.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
That arrangement was it such that each partner earned his remuneration, his fees, only from his clients, his practice, so that if Mr. van der Walt made a lot of money out of his own clients, that was not going to come to you, so you wouldn't be concerned because he's not supposed to share that with you. I'm asking that because the normal arrangement for a partnership is that you share profits and losses. But
Yes.
I'm wondering whether when you emphasized the idea that each one of you had their own practice, whether that meant that even if somebody else, even if one partner made whatever money they made, that was for them.
Yes. To start, Mr. Van Wyk was not a share, he was not a profit sharing director. He didn't receive profit sharing, but myself and Mr. Van der Walt, whatever came into the firm after expenses paid, profits, we shared between me and myself.
Okay, so therefore, in the end, despite the idea that each one had their own practice, there was sharing of profits.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And therefore, if any one of the three partners were to use time that they are supposed to use for the work of the law firm, if they were to use that time to do their own personal business, that would offend the partnership arrangement.
If it affected, we look at a firm, some month one department will do better than the other one. But there was understanding that each partner should contribute to the firm. You must contribute X amount of fees every month, or at least over a period, and it should balance out. So as long as that was more or less equal, because it's not every month the same,
Okay.
then it we won't have
Also,
a
so
problem.
you could have one partner contributing a lot this month into the law firm,
Yes.
and if the following month he used part of the law firm's time, as it were, to do his personal business, you wouldn't have a problem as long as in terms of his performance, in terms of what he brings into the law firm, ultimately, maybe at the end of the financial year, is still reasonable.
That's 100% correct.
That's how it was?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Then at page 190 to page 193 is a document that Mr. van der Walt gave to you and Mr. van Wyk relating to the bank account or the transactional history of Precise Trade's bank account for a particular period. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this he gave to you.
Yes.
Now, there is some...
And that starts at page
190 and goes to 193, Chairman.
and goes up to 193.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there are some handwritten notes on the document. Whose notes are those?
That appears to be Mr. Van der Walt's handwriting.
And when he gave you the documents, were those notes already made on it, those inscriptions?
I am not 100% sure if it was at that stage the notes was made on it when he gave it to us, or whether later during discussions it was brought on. But I I assume when he gave it to us, it was already there. The handwritten notes is already on those statements.
That's how you remember it.
I could be wrong, but as far as I can recall, it was already made. Notes were made on that.
Now, I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes, Mr. Loach. I just want to finish the exchanges between you and Mr. Van Wyk on the one hand and Mr. Van der Walt on the other. What was your reaction to the letter he had sent on the 20th of October together with these documents?
We received it, and we needed further clarification on his answers, and we then addressed a further letter to him to get more details as to the properties he now identified to us, those 5 properties. We needed more clarification on that.
And you then sent him a further letter?
Yes.
That's on the 29th of October, am I correct?
That's correct.
And that letter appears from pages 194 to 197.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairperson, you have translations of these too, but I'm just going to ask Mr. Loubser just to summarize what the issues are in the letter of the 29th of October. What did you raise, just in general terms?
On all 5 of the properties, we wanted to get clarification referencing the bank statement he gave us. When the purchase price, transfers, duties and costs were paid into that account. When was it paid in for all of those individual properties, and who authorized these payments? On all 5 of those properties. We also, and then we refer him to the bank statement with certain amounts. As for instance, there was a deposit on the 18th of June 2014 of 1.8 million 50 rand. It was paid, according to the bank statement, it was paid into Precise Trade Invest's account. And we asked him who deposited that money. And then there's 13 payments were so received. We asked him, we asked him whether that monies, those payments, those 12 payments, was it paid into the firm's trust account or not? That's actually what we asked him.
Sorry, Mr. Loubser, you might remember I asked you a question earlier, and I'm just trying, I'm not suggesting anything wrong with your answer, but you might recall that I asked you when the manuscript was entered onto the bank statement. If you remember, and you said you thought it was at the time he originally gave you the bank statement.
Yes.
If you look at the questions you raise in respect of the payments, and then I'm going to go to his answers in a moment, is it not more likely that he gave you, or he put the handwriting on it after he received your queries? Because if he had put it there, you would not have asked. I'm just trying to...
Yes. Yes. I refer to certain ontekening notes. So it must have been there when you gave it to us. But as I said, I don't know for sure, but it's, yes, must have been already there. It must have been there on the statements already, yes.
No, you
Okay, I
mean
just
it
want to
came
make sure.
later?
I just want to make sure I follow.
Yes.
Are you saying that given what you see in this letter at page 194 to 197, is it 7? No. Yeah.
Yes, 197.
197. When you look at the contents of that letter and the questions you and Mr. Van Wyk were asking, are you now saying it's more likely that the handwritten notes on the other letter of Mr. van der Walte responding to your earlier letter, are you saying they are more likely to have been made, the handwritten notes?
It's more likely that it had been
After.
made previously.
Or at the time they were given, the letter was given to you?
It appears,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I was suggesting the others. I was suggesting because you asked, it's more likely that he made the inscription after you asked the questions.
That's why I say I
You
can only
can't remember.
speculate.
No,
I
I
cannot
understand.
for sure say when those.
No, I understand. It's not a question of memory, it's a question of just trying to piece together the different pieces of information. All right. Anyway, you ask him about the 5 properties, and then you ask him about the various amounts that were deposited into the precise trade bank account. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did he respond to that?
He responded to that in his letter,
Page 198.
which you find page 198. Only on the 28th of January 2016, he responded to that letter.
And that letter goes from 198 to 202.
That's correct. And therein, he, with reference to the bank statement of Precise Trade and Invest, he firstly, he says the money that was paid into Precise Trade and Invest was obtained by loan accounts between TMM, and TMM paid that money directly into that account of Precise Trade and Invest. Then he continues to deal with the first property, which is the Parkwood property, the one he bought from Montana, which he then says the purchase price of 6.8 million rand was paid from that Precise Trade and Invest account. It was paid in 9 payments, which in a list, X amount was paid on this day, on these and these days. Over a period for almost 9 months, the purchase price was paid to Mr. Montana. And then also on the other properties, he says the purchase price was paid by GMM, and all those other amounts, the money deposited into Precise Trade, he says paid GMM, and then Americo Pimentel and Mark Clancy. Americo Pimentel, Mark Clancy. So 3 parties that paid money into the account of Precise Trade and Invest were Mark Clancy, Americo Pimentel, and TMM. They paid money into that account, Precise Trade and Invest.
So can I then come back to page 197 and the last 3 questions you asked there? And your question at paragraph 9 seems to suggest that you are right, that the handwritten inscription would have been entered into before it was given to you, because you then ask, what does TMM loan and TMM agreement mean? Is that
Yes.
correct? Mr. Chairperson, my assumption was wrong. I accept. And then you ask him about other payments, and then you ask him a question about Mr. Montana. I'd like us to deal with each of those matters, please. So your question at paragraph 9 on page 197 is what?
You made certain notes on the bank statement, TMM loan and TMM agreement. Kindly distinguish between the two.
And what is his answer? It
He says
appears
that-
at page 201, paragraph 18, Chairperson.
Which I understood from his explanation is TMM loan is a loan that he received from TMM, personal loan or a loan between Precise Trade and TMM. It's a loan that he received from money from them, and the TMM agreement, I assumed, was the agreement where TMM had to pay him certain commissions for work he done personally for them.
Right, and then paragraph 10, you ask him if he was aware of the investigation.
Yes,
by
I
the
asked him whether
police.
he's aware of any investigation by the SAPD or any other instance which,
And what was his answer?
he said, I translate, ek is nie bewus, or it's in Afrikaans, I am not aware of any,
I'm sorry, I think I've lost you, or you've lost me. Paragraph
apologies.
10, at which page?
at
It's
page,
page 201, Chairperson, the answer
101.
at paragraph 19, page 201.
Yeah.
In response.
Yeah, I think you said at paragraph 10, and I was looking at on the side, which
Yes.
is paragraph 19.
Yes.
So that is at paragraph
At paragraph
10.
10, yes.
Yeah, but that appears at paragraph 19. Okay.
And what was his answer?
in response to my question, if he's aware of any investigation by the SAPD or any other instances, he responded to say he's not aware of any investigation of whatever nature by any instance against him personally or against Precise Trade and Invest.
And then paragraph 10, page 197, what was the question?
It's the second 10. There was a
Sorry, the
typing
second
error.
10,
The
yes,
second
yes.
10. Then I asked whether Mr. Montana is in any instance, any involved to the entity.
I'm sorry, what did you asked him whether he knew Mr. Montana?
Yeah, let me rephrase. I asked whether Mr. Montana is in any way involved to the entity Precise Trade and Invest, and if so, the nature of his involvement. Which he had also asked him whether at any stage payments made to him out of that Precise Trade and Invest account, except for the purchase of the property. He responded to that.
That's at page 202, paragraph 20, art paragraph 10.2, is that correct?
Says I'm 100% shareholder in Precise Trade and Invest and the sole director. No final agreement could be finalized between Precise Trade and Invest and Mr. Montana due to various reasons, but specifically the way how to deal with property transactions and investments, as well as Montana's shortage of funds. There was negotiations regarding a possible joint venture in various properties, but the parties decided not to proceed with the joint venture. I confirm that all 5 of the properties belongs to Precise Trade and Invest. And then as to the second part of my question, whether any payments was made by Precise Trade and Invest to Montana other than the purchase price, he says a loan of 1.3 million rand was granted to Mr. Montana, which are clearly set out in a loan agreement.
So I just want to go back to that last issue, Mr. Loubser. Did you understand that to mean that the loan had been made through the Precise Trade account?
Yes.
Can I then ask you to look at the account, the bank account of Precise Trade, which, as we've already indicated, starts at page 90 and goes up to page 193.
Yes.
So perhaps I should just deal with the last point because it's fresh in everybody's mind. He says that a loan was made to Mr. Montana of 1.3 million rand on the 20th of February 2015.
Yes.
Okay. Can I just ask, if one looks at the bank account itself, I've looked for it, but I've not seen such an amount being debited to the account. So if you look at page 194,
Yes.
that's the February transactions.
Yes.
Can you see, and I'm asking because I've looked for it to tally,
So looking at page?
page 194, oh, sorry, 191.
191 deals with November 2001. Oh, no, sorry, 191. My apologies. So there is. He says.
So if you look from the bottom, you'll see the last entry is made on the 28th of February.
Yes, I see that.
And if you went up, you'll see there is an entry on the 20th of February, but that's for 2 million rand.
Yes.
But there's no indication that on the 20th of February, 1.3 million rand was given to Mr. Montana.
Yes.
And you will see it's in relation to, if you look at page 191, that the account reflects that that was in respect of the Parkwood property.
Yes. 359 Parkwood.
Yes. Mr. Loubser, it's not my intention to suggest that there is something wrong here. I'm just saying there's a bit of a disjuncture between what Mr. van der Walt said in his response and what the bank account reflects. I'm just trying to point that out through you.
I'm not here at all to try and explain what Mr. Van der
No,
Walt did.
and I'm not
So I
asking,
did not
but
know.
I'm just pointing
But
out.
all I can point out is, in his answer at page 202,
Yeah.
he said a loan was granted to Montana on the 20th of February 2015, which is clearly set out in a loan agreement. Unfortunately, the loan agreement was not annexed to it. But a reading of that does not necessarily mean the 1.3 million rand was paid on the 20th of February. It could have been, the agreement was done on the 20th of February 2015, but to be paid in March or April. I'm not saying it, but
I am not sure whether there is any issue between the two of you, because the lighting here is quite bad. I think a few days ago I asked if somebody could arrange to get some light that could help me here. So when you were referring, Mr. Lobsha, to payment at page 191, I think of 20 February, I was trying to have a look here and I was expecting to see in the entries reference to Mr. Montana, but I wasn't able to see, so I'm not sure. I got the impression that there is some issue about some question, or there is no issue.
Chairperson, all I have a duty to do is the witnesses presented documents to say in respect of the documents that he has presented, and I know they are not his, there appears to be this.
No, I understand that. I got the impression that Mr. Lobsha was not prepared to give an answer to a question. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
No, not at all.
Oh,
not at all. I'm more than willing to answer any questions, but I don't understand the question.
All right. I didn't hear everything, but I understood Mr. Sone to simply want to check with you whether his understanding of this document would be the same as yours in relation to, with reference to what Mr. van der Walt had said. On the face of it, that didn't appear to me to be a problem.
No, there's definitely no.
There's no problem.
If for clarity's sake, Mr. Sone can put the question to me again, and I might.
So Mr. Lobsha, this is my difficulty. We are trying to work out where the money is reflected in the bank accounts went to, and tally it with the explanation given to Mr. van der Walt, by Mr. van der Walt to you. Now, he says, when you ask him specifically about Mr. Montana, he says, I gave Mr. Montana a loan of 1.3 million rand.
Yes.
Now, and I would have expected that there would be an entry that reflects a debit of 1.3 million rand around that period. And I was just pointing out, it doesn't appear to be, so that's.
I agree, it does not appear. Thanks.
And there is no reflection of a payment to Montana during that period. I just point this out again and again so that we have it on record. He makes, for example, on the 18th of July, at page 190, you'll see he talks about a Montana payment. On the 18th of July again, he talks about another Montana payment. And then the 24th of July, he talks about TLM, and that I understand is Sepo Lucky Montana. That's Mr. Montana. So those three I could relate to Mr. Montana, and that was the only purpose of my question.
Correct.
I'm sorry. You say TMM as reflected in handwritten form at page 190 you understand to be reference to Mr. Montana.
No, not TMM,
Yeah.
Chairperson. On the 24, at page 190, on the 24th of July 2014, there's an amount, a payment of 400,000 rand. And you'll see in the bank statement, it is said, the reference is TLM.
Oh, now I can say TLM.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
see, there's the handwritten TMM. So I thought you were saying TMM. You say TLM.
TLM.
Okay.
So I'm merely pointing out that where there appears to be a reference to Mr. Montana, it coincides with what Mr. van der Walt gives in his breakdown. Now, can I just ask you, Ms. Loubser, because if you're not aware of this, all we can ask you to do is to confirm that all these documents were given to you with these handwritten inscriptions there, and knowing Mr. van der Walt's handwriting, you say that that handwriting is his handwriting.
Yes.
You don't know about the fact of the transactions, the payments made into the accounts, and the payments made from the account.
No, I don't.
And all you can do is rely on what Mr. van der Walt
What he
said to you.
answered.
If I could ask one final question, because it is quite relevant to this. If you look at the very first entry in the bank account, or the transactional history we were given, it's on the 18th of June 2014, am I correct?
Yes.
And that's a deposit of 1.85 million rand. Is that correct?
Yes.
The second entry is on the same date, the 18th of June 2014, and there's a deposit of 400 million rand. 4 million rand.
Yes.
Right. And to that, Mr. van der Walt says is a TMM loan, as he describes it.
Yes.
Then immediately after that, there is a payment on the very same day of 2.25 million rand.
Yes.
And that is said to be in regard to Precise.
Regard to?
To Precise, as reflected.
Is that where he has written guarantee or something?
No. Next to, under the date 18/6/2014, it says withdrawal, and in the line immediately under that, the bank writes Precise Rian loan.
Yes. Yes. Is that not with reference to that 2,250,000 rand?
Yes.
It is in relation to that.
Yes.
On my page, immediately after that, there is something written there by hand that looks to me like guarantee, but it might be something else. Do you have the same thing?
Yes. No. You're quite right, Chairperson. I was not looking, because that is next to the figure 2.25 million.
Yes. Okay. Is there any significance to that?
It has a
handwritten?
significance, Chairperson, because this is the first payment made in respect of the Parkwood property.
Just raise your voice.
So
That's
it's
the first payment?
Payment made in respect of the Parkwood property.
Oh, made by Mr. van der Walt.
Van der Walt.
Okay.
And that obviously is a payment.
And the reference to guarantee, is there any? Or you don't know why?
What I understand when one looks at the whole picture, the Parkwood agreement between Mr. Montana and Precise Trade is to this effect, that there will be a payment, a down payment of 2.5 million rand. And they also say that that can be paid in respect of the bond outstanding on Mr. Montana's property that he is occupying in Waterkloof at that time. So just the inference is that that was the payment made to finalize that bond.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Luxa, is that Mr. Van der Waal's handwriting or not that says guarantee or not?
Yes.
Do you have any understanding of what that guarantee means apart from what?
Not at all, no.
You have no idea what it means? Okay, all right.
Chairperson, may I, and I just want to complete the picture because this was not only conjecture. I can ask you to look at page 198 with respect, Chairperson.
While I'm looking at that, this document, Mr. Losha, starting at page 190, the one we are looking at.
Yes.
It's part of what Mr. Van der Walt furnished to you and Mr. Van Veek, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you not have occasion to ask about what this guarantee refers to?
No. In his response, he just said that it was part of the purchase price.
Yeah.
That is that 2,250,000 rand was
Yes.
part of the purchase price.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Page 1,
Page 198.
198.
And
Yes.
Chairperson, you'll see at the middle of the page is the start of paragraph 2.2, talking about the purchase price of 6.8 million rand. This
Yes.
is dealing with the answer to the
as
Parkwood
Dal asked
property.
for.
And you'll see on the 18th of June, that is the payment is
Yes.
made in respect of.
Yes.
And because I've read the terms of the agreement, the purchase of the Parkwood property by Mr. Van der Walt, the clause reads in terms of a deposit of 2.5 million rand will be paid. And it says, but this can be paid in respect of the bond on Mr. Montana's property in Waterkloof.
Yeah, I may have read somewhere, and I thought it might be in connection with the agreements relating to these properties, or in relation to documents relating to this Swifambo or Siaya or Siangan. I seem to think I've read somewhere an agreement that refers to certain payments as guarantees or guarantee.
Yes.
And so when I see this guarantee, I'm wondering whether it has a connection with what I may have read somewhere. So, but maybe not.
No.
Yeah.
You'll recall, Chairperson, yesterday when Ms. Ngoyi was giving evidence, she talked about the 900 million rand guarantee
Yes.
that they were required to pay,
Yes.
and that which they saw for the first time
Yes.
when the interdict application was
Yes, yes, in relation to Suvambo.
Siangena.
Siangena, yes. So maybe that's where,
That's the-
maybe that's where I'm taking it from.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's all right.
Mr. Chairperson, in view of the fact that Mr. Loacher doesn't know any more about these. It would be unfair to ask him to speculate. One is just going to get the correct answer is, well, I can't tell. This is what was said to me. And it may just be better to confirm that all of this is what was said to him, and then for us to draw our own inferences when one puts the whole picture together.
Yes, well, in any event, if you haven't already done so, if you have information relating to Mr. van der Walt, you could send notice to him to say, this is what we are looking at. You are at liberty to furnish us with an affidavit. Obviously, he is at liberty even to come to South Africa and apply to adduce evidence.
Yes.
So he might elect to put up an affidavit. He might elect to come.
Yes.
He might elect not to want to have anything to do with us. And of course, since he's out of South Africa, we can't compel him.
No, sure.
So that's fine. But there is one question I want to ask. Mr. Lobsha, there is a letter that, I don't know where exactly it is here in the bundle, but there's a letter that Mr. van der Walt wrote on the letterheads of the law firm, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been an email. But he wrote to an estate agent, I believe, in regard to one of these property transactions, and said to the estate agent that the law firm had, I think, 5 million rand in its trust account, which was for financing that property. I got the impression in the documents that there was no such amount in the trust account of the law firm when Mr. van der Walt said there was. Do you remember what, have you come across that in the documents or not?
There was, yeah, because that was in the media report. There was also mention of a 5 million rand, but there was never money in our trust account, in the firm's trust account of 5 million rand. We never held it in our trust account.
Yes. So to the extent that that's what he said in a letter, that's not true, as far as you know. To the extent that he may have said there was, at a particular time when he wrote that letter, there was an amount of 5 million rand in the law firm's trust account for that property, that would not be true.
I don't know the exact dates, but I don't. There was never an amount of 5 million rand deposited into the firm's trust account.
Yes.
By
5 million, isn't it? Not
Yes.
500.
No,
5 million.
5 million, yes.
So that much you can say, that there was never such an amount.
Not in the firm's trust.
No, in the trust account.
No.
Yeah. Do you remember that letter?
Yes,
Are you able to refer him to it and the date, so that for the sake of completeness we...
Yes. Wasn't expecting this. I know I
wonder whether
made a point of it in...
I wonder whether your junior is able to be of assistance.
Yes, yes. Chairperson, this is a document that appears somewhere in another file.
In another part.
Can I show it to Mr.
Yeah.
Loubser, and then I will address you on where we will
Yeah,
find it?
that's fine,
And
yeah.
when it'll come before
That's
you.
fine. Mr. Loubser, if you can have a look at that letter. You can say, in the meantime, Mr. Sony, that it's a letter dated what, or if it's
Yes.
an email dated what, from who and addressed to whom,
Yes.
and about what.
Yes.
Or you won't be able to say that until you get the letter back.
No,
Or maybe, Mr. Loubser, you can tell us who is it from?
It is a letter from Vault Incorporated to Pam Golding's property.
Yes.
With the heading TL Montana transaction, referring to a conversation. It's dated the 8th of November 2014, wherein the signatory, which is Mr. Van der Walt, confirmed that we hold in our trust investment account an amount of 5 million rand, which amount is available to be allocated towards the purchase price of the property.
Yes. Would that statement be correct that at that time, do you know whether that statement is correct that at that time there was 5 million rand deposit in the law firm's trust account in regard to that property?
I'm not aware 5 million rand was paid into our firm's trust account, but it refers here to investing account.
It's not a trust, the
No,
letter
we
doesn't
didn't
say
bank
trust account. It says investment account. The letter, what does it say?
It says, hold in our trust investment account with Investec Bank, 5 million rand. But I'm not aware of such a 5 million rand.
Is that something that can be checked, that you can check and maybe do a supplementary affidavit whether when you investigate you are able to confirm for sure whether it is so or it is not so? Or are you sure that there wouldn't have been? I just want us to be sure.
There would not have been no, I cannot say for sure. But I can check whether we
Yeah,
received
please.
an amount
Yes.
from whoever into our trust account.
Yeah, because we just want to see whether what he said there was factually correct.
But this letter is dated the 6th or the 8th of November.
Mr. Sony and them can email you too, so that you have a copy, or then you can do a supplementary affidavit. He can keep it.
Yes,
Okay.
we'll make another copy.
Okay, keep it, and then by when would you be able to file a supplementary affidavit just to deal with that part?
Next week.
Next week, Wednesday, next week, Friday?
By next week, Friday at the latest.
Friday next week.
Because
Okay, Okay, that's
exactly.
fine.
Friday, what do you?
Yes.
Okay, all right. No, thank you.
Can I? Because it may well be an important issue. If one looks at page 193, or is it 191, sorry,
Yeah.
of the papers, and that's page 190 of the papers. The date of that is the 6th of November, the date of the letter where Mr. Van der Walt confirms that that is the amount. If one looks at page 190 and looks at the entry, the entry in the bank statement on the 6th of November 2014, you will see a deposit of 5 million rand from Mr. Pimentel.
Hang on 1 second. You are saying you are at page 190,
190,
and then what date?
6th of November 2014.
6th of November 2014 here.
And
Yes.
you will see that that is a deposit of 5 million rand.
Oh, yes, there is a deposit of 5 million rand. And is this the Investec account that he is talking about in the letter?
Mr. Locha?
That could be. That's why I looked at the dates.
But
Yes.
But Mr. Van der Walt previously indicated that all these amounts was paid into Precise Trade and Invest directly, not through Lopes Van der Walt's trust account.
Yes.
Deposited directly. So it could be that he meant, no, I'm not going to speculate what he meant. But
Yes.
He received 5 million rand in Precise Trade and Invest account. So
Yes.
that money 5 million rand was never paid into our normal
Yes.
trust account.
But the letter, just remember, but the letter does represent, as you read it, that the money was being held in the trust account of, or in the account of the law firm. Is that right?
It says that it's held in our trust investment account. But that trust investment account is at one of Precise Trade and Invest.
Would you have had such an account as a law firm? Trust investment? Or is
Yes.
it Investec or investment account
Yes.
that he refers to? Where you invest your clients' money that you haven't used, would that be where
yes.
there would
It
be
wasn't-
a trust investment account?
Yes.
That's where you would invest clients' monies that you are not supposed to.
No, those accounts were mostly were property transactions where the purchaser bought the
Yeah.
property and he didn't require.
Also,
a
that
loan. So to
it
give a
gets
guarantee.
interest in the meantime.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But the reference there in that letter, is it a reference to that type of account that a law firm would have, or is it a reference to a different account?
I don't know.
You are not sure?
No.
Okay, all right. But as you read it, it could refer to, you say it may have meant Precise Trade's Investec account.
Yes.
Yeah.
I-
And the letter is dated what?
8th
the
November.
The
8th.
6th. It's dated the 6th, Chairperson.
The letter is dated
The
6th,
6th of November.
which is the same
Same
date
date as
as the entry.
Yes.
Do you see it as 6 or as 8? What's written there?
It's very
Very difficult. The
illegible, but
lighting
it
is
could
not
be either
good.
6 or 8. It's 0
Okay.
and-
But whether it's 8 or 6, if this deposit happened on the 6th, it might not make a difference.
No.
Yeah.
May
Okay.
May I, while you are there, Chairperson, refer you to the very next entry on the bank account. The 6th of November is a deposit from Mr. Pimentel of 5 million rand. And then on the 7th of November in the bank account, the very next entry is a payment of 5 million rand to Pam Golding, 119 Empire Place, which is the Sandhurst property, which is what that letter refers to.
Oh, yes. Which is the Parkwood.
No, Sandhurst,
Oh, Sandhurst. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay.
because that's the letter addressed to Pam Golding, who sold the Sandhurst property.
Oh, that letter is in regard to the Sandhurst property.
That's right, yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Does this document tell us who made the payment into this account?
The bank account doesn't, but Mr. Van der Walt's inscription says
Yeah.
it was by Mr. Pimentel.
Yeah,
You'll see the name Pimentel next to that 5 million.
okay, okay. You are done. You are done with,
I am.
yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Losha, for coming to give evidence. I guess that for the sake of completeness, even though at this stage it might look obvious, it might help if you are able to confirm that around about that date of 6 November 2014, there was no such deposit or amount held in the trust account in relation to any such property.
Yes.
Yeah, just so that it's cleared. Yeah. And the deadline is Friday next week.
If you can just phrase it exactly, and then I will do a supplementary affidavit confirming the dates.
Yeah.
If that's
Okay. No, thank you very much. You are excused.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lodge.
Mr. Soni, we are at nearly 25 to 5. I indicated that I would be prepared to sit till later than that, but I was thinking we would go up to 6, but I did say we would find out from the witness who would be coming in whether it's convenient, because they might not have planned to be here
To stay
for
so
that
late.
long.
Yes.
What is the position?
Can,
Who is the next witness?
the next witness is Mr. Green, Chairperson.
Check what his situation is about us continuing, or whether he's happy to come back tomorrow. Well, you can just ask. He will speak from where he is. You don't have to go there.
Oh, he is happy to continue, Chairperson.
He's happy to continue. Okay, and we won't be long with him, isn't
No,
it?
no, no,
Yeah. Let's take a 10 minutes break now. And if there was going to be another witness...
There is
then
another witness, that's Ms. Karen de Beers. She came all the way from Cape Town, Chairperson, so
what is her situation? She can just speak from what is your situation?
oh, okay.
Yeah, you are happy to stay? Yes. You're spending the night in Joburg? Or you live in Pretoria? Or you came from Cape Town? But tomorrow would be inconvenient for you? It would be convenient tomorrow. Okay, all right. We'll try and finish, because your evidence won't be long either. But let's take a 10 minutes break, and then we will continue. It's 25 to now. We'll resume at 1:45.
As you
We adjourn.